All right. Let's go ahead and try and proceed. As soon as we can get the volume adjusted, we'll advance the presentation to the next slide. Okay. Well, welcome. Good to see y'all. We can't. We've lost our view of the presentation. Bingo. Let's start off by outlining what we'll talk about tonight. We'll begin by talking about some background information, general information about the capital plan and capital planning process. Then we'll lead off by talking about the status of the current year new asset and improvement spending plan, because I believe that gives us a good feel for where we are in terms of the current financial situation. We'll then get into the meat of the presentation with the proposed major lake management improvement projects that are greater than $100,000. These are the big ticket items, followed by major replacement capital projects of over $100,000. Finally, we will cover all of the projects that have been submitted thus far for new asset and improvement projects. And we'll finish off with a discussion of the schedule moving forward through the budget planning cycle. There will be time for member questions after each part of the presentation, so please hold your questions to the end of each part. And for those of you that are on Zoom, if you could please use the raised hand function, our tech support will be able to let us know, and we'll be able to get your questions at that point. Before we go any further, I'd like to introduce the members of the Planning Committee currently. To my right, Mr. Alan Priester, who's the Vice Chair of the Planning Committee. Beginning to my left, Ms. Leighton Cumming, Tom Sheridan, our newest member, Fran Datillo, and then we have 3 members that are going to participate via Zoom tonight. They are John Kalea, John Urechko, and our advisory member, Ali Felder. Thank you all for coming to help out. The purpose of this town hall is to inform, next slide, to inform Lowell members of the capital projects that are under consideration for inclusion in the 2021 through 25 budget period, and to seek your feedback. And I went over the 3 sections of capital plans that we will cover tonight: lake management projects, major replacement capital projects, and new asset and improvement projects. Next slide. For 2020, I wanted to include a slide on advisory notes that should be considered when listening to our presentation tonight. First of all, this is the first step of the budget process, the earliest step. This will continue on through February of 2021. We are merely taking the information that we have available to us at this time and presenting it to the members for their edification and for their comments. This presentation is based on a Miller-Dodson replacement reserve study that is almost a full year old. The updated study will be presented to the board for their consideration next month. So some of the figures we have will probably be off, hopefully not by very much. But that is the nature of the beast when dealing with capital projects. The replacement reserve study does not come in until after this town hall meeting. The full draft 5-year capital plan from our general manager, Phil Rodenberg, hasn't been completed at this point because of staffing issues that Phil has had to deal with. So there is a very good chance that there will be either additional projects included, or the timing of projects will be impacted. We know from listening to the board meeting last Wednesday and from information we've gathered in speaking to our board liaison that the new board will be taking a very conservative approach to the current year budget and fiscal year 2021 budget. They anticipate offsetting amenity and administrative income losses through the use of prudent financial decisions that promote financial stability, and that may include considering the deferral of new capital projects. And I would say that the prospect of deferral of capital projects is probably a very, very likely outcome. But given our association's current financial status and the role of capital spending in the budget, we just want to emphasize that the 5-year capital plan is very much a work in progress at this point. So what we're presenting tonight is our first stab at capital plan. Next slide, please. The next slide is a background slide that shows how the association spends its money for operations. This scheduled replacement and repair is a routine and necessary expenditure, which we will discuss in detail later, and for capital expenditures. So there's operations and capital expenditures. Capital expenses include both repair and replacement of existing assets and the acquisition of new assets. Now, as many of you know, the association owns well over 800 assets, ranging from vehicles and yard maintenance devices to kitchen equipment and building systems such as roofs, siding, plumbing. And last year, we had an estimate of the total replacement cost of all these assets was over $26 million. It's probably higher now. Just as each member must maintain their assets, the association must maintain these assets going forward. Each year, the association replaces, repairs, or renovates specific assets according to a master plan and their condition at the given time. Repair and replacement is planned spending based on expected useful life of an asset. The board can also choose to purchase or construct new assets like the dog park recently, which will then be added to the repair and replacement process. Capital projects approved by the board are discretionary spending. Next. So a brief review of the capital budget process, as I said, begins with general manager developing a 5-year capital plan with input from his staff, and operating centers work with their aligned committees to present plans to the planning and finance committees. We planning committee members then present these major projects to members in tonight's town hall. The planning committee over the next month will then analyze these proposed projects to make sure they make sense, to make sure they're useful, and to make sure that they meet the needs of the association at the given time. We then make our recommendations to the board of directors in late October, about a month from now, almost exactly. Next. So this town hall is only presenting these proposed projects. We are informing members of the proposed projects, and we're seeking member opinions. Basically, we're trying to get your feedback as to how important you think these projects are in your use and your membership of the association. The precursor to further analysis and hearings of the Planning and Finance Committee before making recommendations to the board. The board will review all proposed R&R expenditures at a board meeting in late October. And then all projects will be publicly discussed at the December budget hearings, which are the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of December. And I believe they're going to be here in Marion Pronk Hall unless something changes in the meantime. I think it's important that if you're interested in hearing what we're saying tonight, that you try and attend some of these meetings, because that really gets down into the detail and into the information that you need and that the board needs to make their decisions. But the board has the ultimate decision. Next. I wanted to start this year by talking about the status of our current new asset and improvement spending plan. As you'll see from the slide that's on your screen, there were 8 projects approved by a board this past spring for inclusion in the 2020 budget. Of those 8 projects, you can see, hopefully you can read on this slide, only 3 of them have been either completed or on schedule to complete. 4 more of them have been placed on hold by the board in light of our current financial situation. And the 8th, which is the walk-in cooler at the Fairways Cafe, has been taken and reassigned to the Wood Center Ad Hoc Committee chaired by Mr. Sheridan, who will consider a plan for the total renovation of the Wood Center and would include consideration of the new walk-in cooler at that time. So the present year's new asset spending has been curtailed greatly. Next. The first major section then we'll get into here in the town hall is proposed lake management projects over $100,000. We have one that's slightly under, but we'll get to that in a moment. For those who are not familiar with the Lakes Management Plan, it was developed back in 2012 to assess the health of both the main lake and Keaton Lake. It identified short-term and long-term actions to address the health of the lakes and protect our assets, and recommended best practices. That Lakes Management Plan has been updated several times in the last 8 years and will be updated again shortly in the next year or 2. The next slide. The most recently completed Lakes Management project is the Flat Run Forebay. It was completed back in July, and based on the figures that I received a couple weeks ago, it looks like it was completed under budget, which was nice. It was completed by the docks of the Bay of Whitestone, Virginia, and it seems to be doing its job. There's currently evaluating the impact of the forebay on the lake's health, but from my understanding, the early results are very positive. So now the next slide we'll get into are proposed lake management projects over the next 5 years. I've taken the liberty this year to include 3 projects that were proposed either as part of the repair and the R&R study or as part of a new asset, because they are closely aligned with stormwater management. Stormwater management in the lake is a complex and ongoing issue that needs to be addressed in a comprehensive fashion that integrates a number of projects that we will describe over these next few slides. So I believe that these projects that I have put up in with the lake management projects should be considered as part of lakes management and stormwater management. The first project that is listed, which you'll see is currently priced just under $100,000 at $85,000, is an update to the Lakes Management Plan. It is currently scheduled to be done in 2022, but the board in their draft goals discussed at last week's first board meeting are that they would like to accelerate the Lakes Management Plan update to next year. And in doing so, also include stormwater management as part of the Lakes Management Plan. And we as a committee strongly support that, and we'll probably be making a recommendation to that effect to the board in the next couple of weeks. The next 2 projects are the Culp's Cove Stream planning and design, and we've got a next slide for that. Culp's Cove stream restoration is probably the most complex stormwater management project in the association. It was included in the original 2012 Lakes Management Plan, originally slated for completion in 2017 and 18. But due to the complexity and the expense of this project, it has been moved down the road on a couple of occasions and probably will continue to be until we can get a handle on the entire scope of the projects. For those of you who aren't familiar with Culp's Cove, it's a small cove at the bottom of the lake between Edgemont Circle and Confederate Circle. It is a very narrow and shallow basin, but acts as a catch basin for a large stream watershed between Monticello and Battlefield Drives, and impacts quite a number of private lots, directly close to 24 by my count. Indirectly, probably above 40 lots are impacted by that stream shed. Culp's Cove has serious problems with flooding and erosion every time we have serious heavy rainstorms. However, it's so complex because it's largely on private lots along with some lake easements, and that combination makes it very difficult to address, and also the large number of lots involved. So you'll see that it is proposed for 2023 for the design, and then 24 and 25 for stream restoration. But it's a very high ticket item, and it is still very much a work in progress. The next project that has been proposed that fits under stormwater management is the Monroe Street culvert improvements and stream restoration, and I'll let Tom Sheridan tell you a little bit about that.
You want to go to my slide now?
Yeah, okay. Next slide.
I think it's a couple more down.
Was that the previous one? I think we skipped the Monroe Street.
There it is.
Yeah, there we go.
Monroe Street culvert improvement and stream restoration. This project initially pays for a study to restore both the upstream and downstream portion of a stream and replace a culvert under Lakeview Parkway. It's near the intersection of Monroe Street. This project supports the LOA's overarching goal to maintain and upgrade infrastructure. The associated strategy is the stream restoration follows the associated strategy to implement the plans to upgrade all roads and associated drainage facilities, including all ditches and culverts. The benefits to LO is to elimination of hazardous flooding during very heavy rain events. If you look at the slide, at the center of the slide, you'll see a rounded top of a drainage pipe. That drainage pipe is 54 inches, or almost 4 feet, higher than 4 feet in diameter. So right in front of that, you have a 4-foot hole in the stream that anybody could step in. This also improves, obviously, the stream flow with reduced sediment to the main lake. Our outside contractors, Stantec, provided 3 alternatives for replacing the culvert and some upstream correction. Their evaluation did not address the downstream impact of new culvert after water flows under Lakeview. M&E committee is requesting a full watershed study in 2021 that is estimated to cost $60,000. M&E further estimates that replacement of the existing culvert and correction of the complete upstream and downstream stream would cost approximately another $250,000 in 2022. Next slide. Ditch reconstruction. Ditch reconstruction was a recurrent project initiated as a result of the Williamsburg Environmental Group, WEG, study of our lakes in 2012. This project also supports LOA's overarching goal of maintain and upgrade infrastructure, with the same associated strategy to implement the plans to upgrade all roads and associated drainage, including all ditches and culverts. The benefit to LOA is that ditch reconstruction improves lake water quality by minimizing sediment resulting from runoff and flooding. Restoring 1 mile of ditch is estimated to annually remove 37 tons of sediment from our lakes. Since 2012, 13 miles of the 23 miles of estimated ditch need to be corrected have been repaired by Lower Road and our outside contractors. This budget year, the outside contractor funds for the programs were repurposed to a particularly large stormwater management water project. Lower road crews continue to do their portion of the ditch reconstruction and are estimated have a target of 4,000 linear feet this year, or approximately 3/4 of a mile. The M&E committee is requesting that $140,000 be restored to each year of the 5-year plan until the remaining 10 miles of ditches are restored. This is estimated to take 6 years, or approximately total for the 5-year plan plus one of $840,000. Back to you.
Thank you, Tom. Next slide. The final stormwater management proposal that we received from the Planning Committee is also from the M&E Committee. It is the 15th Fairway Stream Restoration. This is basically repurposing money that is already in the Miller-Dodson Replacement Reserve study. The 15th fairway of the golf course is a undulating, hilly hole that has drainage to the right as you look down from the tee. It goes into wooded areas that are private lots and actually lead into Keaton Lake. The drainage issues required an emergency repair. They put in a new pipe drain to address the emergency repairs, and with this new pipe and an outfall, riprap outfall, they seem to serve well at this time. But then other issues are developing in other places along the fairway, including water crossing the fairway, sediment going down the cart path from the green, and a new stream bed cutting its way through the woods on the outside of the golf path. And this is leading to significant sedimentation and leaves getting into Keaton Lake. M&E suggests that rather than take the money to modify that, they believe it should be used in a different strategy to restore the stream, which would improve the water quality, the water as it enters Keaton Lake. It will also improve the golf course by eliminating the erosion problems, and also would create a new small water hazard that should not impact play. As I said, this is money that is already set in the replacement reserve plan, and the 2-year estimated cost is $216,000 in 2024 and 25. So those are the projects we have, proposals that we have received thus far this year for either the lake management plan or stormwater management plan. At this point, if you have questions about the lakes management plan, please let us know on Zoom. Are there any questions here in the audience? Seeing none, is there anyone on Zoom that would like to question the lakes management plan projects? Thank you. Our advisory member, Ali Felder, is a member of the M&E committee and is also a past member of the Lakes Committee. Ali, do you want to have anything to add to the stormwater management issue? If you can address that. apparently not. I probably have caught Ally unaware, but
No, I'm back. Can you hear me?
yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I think having been on both the Planning and Lakes Committee and currently serving on the M&E Committee and having talked to several of the board members, I think there's a consensus that there needs to be a comprehensive approach to the combination of stormwater management and lake management. And what you're going to see over the next 12 to 24 months is a shift. We had a plan for fixing the lakes. We started executing that plan, Flat Run Forebay, Keaton's Forebay, and so on. But now we realize that there are other things that we need to address as a community. And so it's going to take a while to gather up all the information, identify all the funding streams, various bits and pieces that really should find under stormwater management, and come up with a comprehensive plan that can be used as a priority measure. I just want to give a shout out to the maintenance folks, particularly Nick Blankenship, our stormwater inspector. He is working very hard to come up with a priority-based strategy that addresses members' concerns or those things that impact our community most. So I would ask that if any of you have drainage issues, please bring them to the attention of Nick Blankenship at maintenance. And he is going to be integral to trying to figure out how to gang tackle this big problem that we have in our community, stormwater management and maintaining our lakes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ally. Are there any further questions that we have through Zoom? If not, we'll move into the next section of the presentation, which are the proposed repair and replacement projects greater than $100,000, the big ticket items over the next 5 years. For those of you who aren't familiar with some of these terms, let me go over a brief review of repair and replacement reserves. This is something that is required by the Virginia Property Owners Association Act, which is the law governing property owners associations, both homeowner associations and condominium associations. They require that associations conduct a full analysis of their assets at least every 5 years, and they identify every asset owned by the association. As you recall, I mentioned earlier that we have well over 800 assets, so you can understand this report is fairly long and extensive. It provides us a basis for planning the repair and replacement of assets over time. Each asset is listed with a economic value and a life of how long that asset should normally last. The lower board wisely funds the repair and replacement reserve within the annual assessment. So money is set aside each year. Our contribution to reserve, CTR, is set aside each year out of our assessment. And these funds are maintained in a separate reserve account. Management works hard to manage all of these assets, and there are no automatic replacements. And that should be clear, that as many of these items come up, such as heavy equipment, they are carefully evaluated to make sure that their economic life is indeed over and that their maintenance costs now exceed the value of that equipment before we automatically replace them, because some of these, as you'll see shortly, are pretty big ticket items. Each operating center, facilities, lakes, clubhouse, determines if it can adjust or delay the replacement or repair of all the assets in their portfolio. So while this is published and listed as given economic lives, it can be adjusted according to the actual condition. Next slide. We have an explanatory slide here. Why do we have to pay for repair or replacement of an amenity that we don't use individually? This question has come up a lot, so we include this slide in each year's town hall presentation. Regardless of where we live, we pay for things that we do not use. For instance, county taxes pay for schools, even if we don't have school-age kids. In our association, all members share the cost of acquiring and maintaining association assets. Members pay for their use of each amenity. For instance, you pay to eat at the clubhouse or fairways. You pay a nominal boat registration fee for your use of the lakes. You pay a yearly fee to use the fitness center, or golfers pay for rounds of golf. But one important point, our amenities are just that. They are there for the convenience of the members. None of them are really profit-making commercial enterprises. They are part of the fabric of our community and our community atmosphere. So although our amenities push to make their subsidy as low as possible, and some of them come close to breaking even, that is a difficult goal to reach within our community, and we as members need to subsidize those in order to keep the atmosphere of our community as it is. Next slide. Some key terms of the repair and replacement reserve. You've heard me already call Miller Dodson. That's the current reserve specialist company that does our repair. Yep, there we go. Our repair and reserve study. It evaluates every asset with replacement costs, expected life, and remaining life. Now, one subtle explanation is the difference between two methods of valuation. One is the cash flow method, which is the sum of our annual expenditures on replacement and reserve to replace a roof on the clubhouse, or to replace equipment to be used for the golf course. Then there's also the component method, which takes a slice of every asset's economic value and allocates it to each year of its life. So that if something is worth $100,000 and it has a 10-year economic life, then the component method would take place $10,000, 1/10 of the value, in each of those 10 years. The way LOA uses the cash flow method because it allows us more flexibility, and it also generally works out to be cheaper on the association. We also, when we're talking about the repair and reserve study, we speak of peak years where the aggregate cost of repair and replacement for the association assets are greater in one given year than another. So the timing of peak years is very important to look at. The recommended R&R funding for 2021, oh, yeah, go back to, I'm sorry, can you back up one more slide? There we go. This shows a comparison of the two methods, the cash flow method evaluation and the component method. In 2021, the cash flow method is approximately 1.7 million. The component method would be 3.5 million, thereabouts. So we are wise in using the cash flow method at this time because it does not require the higher level of funding. Now we can go to the next slide and we can see those peak years. These are the projected R&R requirements out through the next 20 years. This is from the Miller and Dodson report that we're currently working on from last October. And you can see that there are peak years, there are value years. The closest peak year that we have is at the end of this 5-year period, 2025. And I believe the board and we will, management will probably look towards trying to move that peak year out further outside of the 5-year planning window that we're currently working on to try and level them out over time. Because as you can see, several years from now, there's a very distinct valley in our replacement reserve funding as well. And here in our presentation, we talk about major repair and replacement projects over the next 5 years, those that are greater than $100,000. And based on the current repair and replacement study, you can see that the major projects, those over 100,000, generally in most years make up slightly more than 50% of the repair and replacement funding. Some years more than others. Next. The major repair and replacement actions scheduled in 2021 through 25. Yes, next. I'm sorry, Taylor, I'm not giving you good direction. There we go. These are the major actions scheduled for the next 5 years, all that are over $100,000. A number of them are repeated each year, such as Lakeview Parkway resurfacing, which is done in sections, and also stormwater management improvements, where there's money set aside for each year over the next 5 years. We will talk about those that are unique or need to be identified individually. The first one on the next slide we'll talk about is the amphibious excavator, which is currently located right outside of Board Member Terry Vickery's house. And John Kalea, are you available to discuss this slide? One moment, John.
You might have to unmute.
Excuse the interruption. This is trying to do presentations from different locations. John, are you available?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please proceed.
Okay. Unfortunately, since someone else spoke, I've been unable to see the slides, but I can go over the slide, the amphibious excavator slide, and tell you its benefit to the community. It aids us in maintaining and improving the quality of our 2 lakes, and it's part of the dredging program. Further, I know it's been used of late and will be used to remove sediment as a result of the Flat Run 4-bay completion. Its estimated cost of replacement is $300,000. And it's 11 years old and it's currently working. However, it does have some maintenance issues, and its estimated cost of replacement is $300,000. Can we go on to the next slide, please?
John, I believe you've muted your microphone. I'm sorry, while John figures out his technical issues, if he comes.
Hello.
You're back. Okay, thanks, John.
All right. Can we move to the next slide on the wheel case loader?
Yeah, go back one.
It was up.
There we go.
I cannot hear you very well.
Okay, you're good, John.
All right. So we're on the 2007 wheel case loader. Its estimated cost of replacement is $150,000. It aids in the process of accomplishing numerous maintenance and repair tasks for the community. It's used by our employees for digging, moving dirt, stone, and yard debris, for example, at 9.9. And its current condition, it has 4,218 engine hours as of September 14th, 2018, and it is currently working. And it is scheduled to be replaced in 2022. Can we move to the next slide?
You're good.
You all set?
Yep.
The Freightliner. This benefit to law is very, very important. It's used to offload silt from the dredge, and it's also used to load that silt on trucks to be hauled away. With respect to its current condition, the committee report of M&E from their draft minutes indicated that the dredging operation was down once in August for repair of that clamshell truck. It's scheduled to be replaced in 2025, and its estimated cost of replacement is $111,000. And that completes the slides presentation on the major R&R items to be replaced.
Thank you, John, for your portion of the R&R. We'll now move on to Alan Priester to discuss the resurfacing of Lakeview Parkway.
All right, thank you, Jim. Next slide, please. There we go. The resurfacing of Lakeview Parkway is a multi-year, multi-phased project. Right now, we're looking at phases, 2 through 6, beginning in fiscal year 2021. There was a section of Lakeview Parkway that was resurfaced back in 2019 that was complete. And for the moment, the scheduled resurfacing for 2020 has been placed on hold. I understand there's some consideration in combining that with the 2021 for a potential cost reduction. But as you see, we're looking at over the next 5 years, costs of approximately $300,000 a year. And for the total resurfacing of the identified places of Lakeview Parkway, we're talking about, about $1.6 million over that period of time. Next slide, please. I apologize that this is still an eye strain chart on this, but the attempt was to show, by color coding the sections of Lakeview Parkway, the phases and the condition of those roads. That the life of a resurfaced road is approximately 15 years, and there's some portions that are at the end of that life. Some still have a little bit left, which is why these sections are scattered out over the particular fiscal years they are. Next slide, please. Okay, another project that is being proposed as part of an R&R activity is the resurfacing of the security parking lot, and also the portion of the road that goes from the security parking lot to the clubhouse. And let me see, this is scheduled for 2022 at a cost of a little over $200,000. And that does it for the road projects. The next slide also happens to be mine. This is for the clubhouse. The one major R&R project that appears in the Miller-Dotson is the replacement of the main electrical panel that is in the clubhouse. It has this panel was installed when the clubhouse was first built. It had an expected service life of 40 years, and we're getting real close to the end of that service life. The need to replace this is not only is it at the end of its life, but since the clubhouse was built, the electrical code has been upgraded, and we need to upgrade the electrical panel to follow along with the electrical code. This will help reduce the maintenance costs, because right now getting these old circuit breakers are expensive. It will also help reduce our insurance costs, as
Right now we're out of code. They're scheduled for replacement in 2023 at a cost of $286,000. There have been some upgrades done to it on an emergency basis in the past years, so that amount may be reduced as a result of some of those upgrades, but it's still going to be a major deal for the clubhouse.
Next slide. We have one other major repair and replacement expense that falls within this 5-year window, and that is a new project in 2025. It's new because it just now enters into our planning horizon to reconstruct hole number 5 on the golf course. This reconstruction is basically due to the alignment of hole number 5. Hole number 5, for those golfers who play, they know that it is very narrow, tree-lined, and because of its particular attitude, almost directly north-south, it gets very little sunlight, thus making it very difficult to grow grass on the fairway, making it very hard and unplayable. This project, in 5 years out, is meant to build on the tree removal that has been done earlier this year to try and widen the fairway. This will actually realign the fairway and move the green to make it more playable and also to help in lowering maintenance costs and seeding costs and hopefully make it a more playable hole. But once again, that is an estimated cost of $150,000, and that is currently scheduled to be done in about 5 years from now. So that's one major improvement to the golf course we've talked about. So next slide. We have spoken about several of the major repair and replacement projects that are currently included in Miller-Dodson for the next 5 years. The cost centers continually assess the condition to eke out more economic value. So many of these projects may be delayed. We may be able to find alternative solutions to the problems with some of these major items, but we have to budget ahead for them. Once again, as I said early in the presentation, the replacement and repair reserve study, which is a mouthful, is being updated and will be presented to the board next month. So many of these figures will change, some slightly, probably not too many majors, and other assets may be added at the time. We review the R&R study. Not only the planning committee reviews the major items, but finance director, the GM, as he prepares for the December budget hearings, the finance committee, during the budget hearings, we will question about the need for some of these R&R replacements. And the board will review any R&R replacements when reviewing in preparation for approving the fiscal year 21 budget. As I said early on also, given our current financial condition, rather than risk any kind of cash flow tightness, I think there's a very good assumption that many of these capital projects may be postponed from 2021, if not all of them. We should be finding out more of that as we get deeper into the fall and into the budget cycle. Now, this is once again, do we have any questions on these major R&R projects? Either here? Yes, Irving. We have one question here in the meeting. Why don't you please go to the podium?
Yes, Irving Grimes. I have a question on the proposed replacement of the 2007 case wheel loader. And I just note we showed the operating hours going back to 2018. I would think that we should have more current data on that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Once again, Irving, that kind of reflects our current issue with not having a facilities director and the ability to get out and have one of us look at the truck at this time. We agree it needs to be updated.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And we hope to do so. Are there any questions from the Zoom audience? Okay. Thank you. We'll then move on to the final section, which are proposed new asset and improvement projects. The purpose of the new asset and improvement reserve funds are set aside to acquire these new assets or improve existing assets. This is discretionary spending approved by the board. In the 3 years I've been involved with the planning committee, we have anywhere from 20 to 35 new asset or improvement projects proposed to us as a planning committee. This year, I think because people are well aware of our current financial situation, the committees have been largely silent on proposing new projects. We only have 5 projects that have been forwarded to us using our project form. Those 5 projects, we've already spoken to 3 of them in the Lakes Management portion of our presentation. The Monroe Street culvert, the reestablishment of the ditch repair and replacement funding, and the 15th Fairway stream restoration that have all been proposed by the M&E committee for our consideration. Now we have 2 others that have been submitted to us, and the first one is the trail over Veterans Dam, a modification to the plan that has been previously proposed, and that is being described by John Urechko, who is also on Zoom. John, can you hear me? John, you can proceed. I'm sorry for the delay. Once again, we've got a technical glitch in trying to get the presentation done over Zoom.
You need to type it to him. You need to.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, I think I had the same technical issue as before. This is an item, this is the 3rd year in a row that this item has been put forward in the 5-year plan. It's certainly one that reflects a popular trail, which is the walk along the top of the dam and up and down a rough path next to the sluice. The proposal is to pave both the top of the dam and the path that goes along the sluice. The estimated overall cost is about $30,000, which is includes a $10,000 design cost. There are some significant issues related to this beyond just providing the membership with an extension of the hiking trail along very popular view of the lake, obviously. The erosion caused by use of this can impact Virginia dam safety regulations, that we might be out of conformity if we don't step in and address this, number one. Number 2, there is a recurring cost because of that of about $8,000 every 2 to 3 years. Those who have driven by the sluice anytime recently, and if you look over, you can see the portion that goes up along the sluice is severely eroded, and obviously when it rains, that erosion gets exacerbated. So we're faced with either continually repairing this every 2 to 3 years at a cost of $8,000, or paving it over with anything from a 4-foot wide to 8-foot wide path. So that's the proposed project for the Veterans Dam Trail.
Thank you very much, John. We have one more, that was also proposed by the M&E committee, by the way. We have one other proposed new asset project, and that is the security gate at the small marina and Layton Cumming, if you'd like to describe it.
Yes, if you can change the slide, please.
Next slide. There it is. It's up now.
Okay, good. This has been proposed to deal with some complaints coming from people who park the boats at that marina, that sometimes people get on the boats and fish from them or whatever, people who don't own those boats. There's also been issues of trash and excess fishing lines. So this fence would extend from the boat ramp on the west side to the bulkhead on the east, and it would be the same design as the black chain fence looked at the RV boat storage area. The security of the boats docked at the small marina would be improved by this project, as well as the trash collection. Benefits to it, of course, accrue to those who dock their boats there, but also to all residents by not having trash dumped in the lake or the fishing line. The cost would be $8,000, which I must say is one of the cheaper NAI projects I've ever seen. And the risk, if not done, is, of course, thefts and other damage to boats docked there, and the trash issues would continue.
This proposal was actually forwarded to us back in February, March by an individual boat owner, but then has been brought back to our attention by the Lakes Committee recently due to a rash of vandalism and encounters on the docks with people who weren't boat owners. And so I believe the boat owners down who paid to dock at the small marina are especially interested in this proposal. But that is the last of the new asset proposals we received this year, being that we only had 5. Now, there are a number of proposed projects, next slide, that have been proposed in previous years but are not part of the current 5-year capital plan. And you can see a list of a number of these. Several of them were proposed and recommended by the Planning Committee last year, such as the Spotswood Park to Mount Pleasant Drive Trail, the deck awning enclosures. However, based on the recommendations of ours and management or actions by the board, they have not been included at any time in this 5-year plan. The fact that they appear on this list only means that they will be revisited sometime in the future. There are these, and I think a number of others that we want to keep in the hopper, as it were, or available for us to consider at a later date, should we have the financial capability of considering them in the future. Some of them, like the Route 3 security fence, are very high-priced items that may or may not be financially feasible down the road. I think that is one project that I'd worked on in the past, and I think it has quite a few merits to it, but I also realize it is another major project that we would have to consider. So the next slide. As we refine the new asset improvement projects, we will evaluate the proposals for completeness, value, relevance. We prioritize these proposed projects this year with only 5 of them. The prioritization will be pretty straightforward, and we make a recommendation to the board for their decisions. The Finance Committee also evaluates each of these for value, timing, and affordability, how we can afford them. And it also will prioritize proposed projects and make recommendations to the board after the December budget hearings. So, as I said, this year is abnormally quiet for new asset projects, but understandably so given the current financial situation of the association and how we are trying to be very prudent and careful with our money as we move through this economic period. That's the end of that section of the proposal. Are there any questions on new assets and improvement projects? I don't see any here in the hall. Are there any on Zoom? No virtual hands? Well, I think if there were more projects, proposals, we may have more discussion. But as we said, some of those, I think, are very active for certain members of our community, very important to them. Now, the next slide lays out a schedule for the rest of the capital planning process. We will be discussing and prioritizing these projects over the next month. As I said, by October 20th, we'll be giving our recommendations to the board of directors. On October 1st, the draft of the updated Miller-Dodson report will be given to the board for their review. In mid-October, the general manager will distribute the five-year draft five-year capital plan to the board of directors. The 21st, we will give our prioritized list, and then the meeting on October 27th to review the repair and reserve update is, I think, a very interesting one to attend. The proposed fiscal year budget will be, including the five-year capital plan, will be done on 20th of November, and then the December 1st through 3rd joint session of the Finance and Planning Committees to review the budget is also a very interesting way to spend the better part of 3 days. But in certain areas, if you're interested, it is very informative and very helpful, and I recommend you consider attending at least some portion of that meeting. The budget update to the board and request for comments happens after the first of the year. The membership will be presented with the proposed budget in mid-January, and then the board will approve the new fiscal year 21-22 budget at their meeting on the 17th of February, and fiscal year 2021 will begin on May 1st. So that is the process for moving forward to finalizing the capital plan and its role in the whole budget situation, the whole budget planning. The next slide. These are the evaluation criteria that we as a planning committee will use to review the project proposals, whether they support the board goals, safety and security emphasis or code requirement, all the way down to overall community impact. We discuss and consolidate our individual ratings and then vote and submit those recommendations to the board, as I said, on October 20th. Final slide. As I said at the beginning, this town hall is put together early in the process and still has a lot of information that has not been submitted to us. But it is an important way to get information out to the membership, to request their feedback and to get them thinking of what the capital needs and infrastructure needs are for the lake moving forward, what they view as important, what they think may be in need of further consideration. We request your feedback, and I have put our email address on this slide. We request that if you have any ideas, comments, or concerns, to please email us. And there's also a contact link on the Planning Committee section of the Lowell website. We thank you for your interest and taking the time to listen to this meeting. I apologize for any of the technical glitches that we've encountered, but in this time of social distancing, we're doing our best to try and get the information out to you in any way possible. So thank you very much and have a good evening.